Most people spend their entire lives working for money. They trade their hours for a paycheck, their energy for a salary, their dreams for a sense of safety. And yet, if you look closely, you'll see something strange. The people who seem the most financially secure often feel the most trapped. They're not free. They're stuck in a cycle where the next promotion, the next raise, or the next year is supposed to finally make things better, but it rarely does. So let me ask you a question. If you had to choose between two options, which would you pick? A guaranteed path that ends in mediocrity, or an uncertain path that gives you a shot at extraordinary wealth and freedom? Most people never make that choice consciously. They default into the safe option. They convince themselves that stability is worth the trade-off. But what if I told you that so-called safety is actually the riskiest move of all? I know, because I lived it. At 22 years old, I had what most people would call the dream setup. A consultant job with a great salary, a condo overlooking the city, a resume that impressed parents, professors, and strangers alike. On the outside, it looked like success. But on the inside, it felt like a slow death. I remember lying in bed, dreading the thought of waking up to another day of doing work I didn't care about. Here's the financial truth. Nobody told me that cushy salary wasn't making me rich. It was keeping me stuck. It was just enough to look impressive, just enough to keep my family proud, and just enough to keep me scared of leaving. That's the trap most people fall into. The salary handcuffs. It looks like security, but it's actually a prison. At that point, my father was prouder of me than ever. I was the son who had followed the plan, graduated early, landed the big job, checked every box. From his perspective, I was living the dream, but from mine, his dream for me was making me miserable. If I kept following his version of success, I wasn't just giving up my time, I was giving up my life. So I made a decision that felt terrifying but necessary. One of our dreams had to die. His version of my future, or mine. And making that choice didn't feel brave. It felt like betrayal. I was so afraid of disappointing him that when I finally left, I didn't even tell him right away. I packed up, drove across the country, and only halfway through the trip did I pick up the phone and admit what I had done. That's how much fear controlled me. And yet, that fear was the turning point. Because when you zoom out, financial freedom isn't about making money. It's about refusing to settle for a guaranteed bad outcome. And staying in that job, no matter how big the paycheck was, guaranteed that I'd never be wealthy, never be free, never live life on my terms. That was the moment I realized being financially safe can be the most dangerous risk of all. Now let's talk about risk. When people talk about risk, they almost always mean financial risk. They're afraid of losing their savings, afraid of wasting years chasing the wrong idea, afraid of failing so badly they'll never recover. But here's the truth most people never realize. Money comes back, time comes back, skills compound. Almost every financial setback is temporary. The only permanent loss is the regret of never trying. When I walked away from my consulting job, I was terrified of being broke. I imagined worst-case scenarios. No income, drained bank account, moving back home, being labeled a failure. And you know what? Some of those fears came true. My bank account dipped, my lifestyle dropped, people whispered behind my back. But none of those things destroyed me. They just forced me to grow. Think about it like this. If you stay in the so-called safe job, your financial upside is capped. You know exactly how much you'll make in a year. Give or take a small raise. If you take the leap into business or investing, your downside might be temporary pain, but your upside is unlimited. Which one is actually riskier? A ceiling you can't escape, or a floor you might temporarily touch before rising higher? Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward even when fear is screaming at you to stop. The real danger is when fear paralyzes you, because inaction is the only financial decision that guarantees you'll stay stuck. I used to think being labeled a failure was my biggest nightmare. But then I realized something deeper. What I really feared was being a coward. Failing means you tried. Cowardice means You let fear make the decision for you. And in financial terms, cowardice is far more expensive than failure. Failure costs you money you can earn back. Cowardice costs you the chance at freedom, and you can never get that time back. That's why I'd rather lose money chasing a dream than spend my life making safe choices that never build wealth. So if you're willing to accept fear, the question becomes simple. How do you actually start building wealth from scratch? If your goal is to get rich, you need to strip money down to the basics. Forget the jargon. Forget the complicated theories. Money is simple. It's the reward you get for giving value to other people. And the main thing you trade for it is your time. Now, a lot of people repeat this phrase, never trade time for money, but that's wrong. Everyone trades time for money. The real difference is how you trade it. Rich people make every hour of their time worth more. Poor and middle-class people keep trading 1 hour for 1 paycheck. Think about a regular job. You put in 1 hour, you get paid once. If you want more money, you have to work longer or wait for a raise. That's the lowest form of leverage. Now think about a business or an asset. Let's say you build a piece of software, or you write a book, or you create an online course. You spend time building it once, but after that, it can sell again and again without you putting in extra work. That's leverage. Same time investment, but the returns keep coming. That's the first financial truth. Getting wealthy isn't about working harder. It's about using leverage to make your time multiply. So how does this look in business? Every single business, no matter the size, runs on 3 steps. Step 1, attract attention. People have to know you exist. That's marketing. Step 2, convert attention. Once they notice you, you need to turn that attention into money. That's sales. Step 3, deliver value. After they pay, you give them something worth the price. That's product or service. That's the entire game. Attract, convert, deliver. The difference between a small business and a giant empire is how much leverage they put on those 3 steps. A local coffee shop gets a few customers at a time. They sell 1 drink per person. Low leverage, but an online business can attract thousands of people with 1 ad, convert them all through an automated checkout, and deliver a digital product instantly. High leverage. Once you see this, money stops looking mysterious. It's a simple formula. The better you get at attracting, converting, and delivering, with the highest leverage you can find, the faster you'll build wealth. So if leverage is what multiplies your effort, then what do you actually start with? The answer is simple. Your real financial assets in the beginning are your time, your skills, and your energy. That's it. If you don't have money yet, that's not the end of the road. It just means your brain and your hands are the capital you invest. And the smartest way to use them is by learning skills that the market is already paying for. Think about it. Every business is made up of skills: marketing, sales, design, writing, coding, customer service, finance. If you can master even one of these, you have something valuable to sell. You don't need permission. You don't need a boss. You just need the ability to solve problems people are willing to pay for. That's why skill building is the single best investment you can make early on. It's not just education, it's leverage. Because once you have a high-value skill, you can charge more for your time. And eventually, you can package that skill into a product, a service, or a system that makes money without you doing all the work. Not all offers are created equal. Selling your time one-on-one has the lowest leverage. Selling something scalable like software, a digital product, or even media has the highest. If you can build once and sell forever, you've unlocked real financial power. The same applies to how you reach people. Talking to one client at a time is slow. Creating a single piece of content that reaches thousands is fast. That's the ladder of leverage. You start small, and then you move toward higher and higher multipliers. So the real question becomes, which skills should you learn, and how do you turn them into financial opportunities? Most people think business ideas come from a flash of inspiration or some genius-level creativity. But the truth is much simpler. Almost every profitable idea comes from one of 3 places. I call them the 3 Ps: pain, past profession, and passion. Let's start with pain. Pain is one of the strongest drivers of business. If you've ever had a problem that frustrated you enough, you know exactly what this feels like. Maybe it was a food allergy, and you couldn't find products that worked for you. Maybe it was a service that kept letting you down, like unreliable internet or overpriced repairs. Wherever there's pain, there's demand for a solution, and people will pay to make pain go away. The beauty of pain-driven ideas is simple. If you've experienced the problem yourself, you already understand it deeply. Buddy, you don't have to guess what the customer feels because you've lived it. That insight makes your solution more valuable, and it makes your story more powerful. Now let's move to the second P, past profession. This is one of the most underrated gold mines for new entrepreneurs. Think about the work you've already done, the skills you've used, and the industries you've been in. If someone has already paid you to do a job, that means the market values it. So why not take that skill, package it differently, and sell it directly? Instead of doing it as an employee, do it as a freelancer, a consultant, or as the foundation of your own company. The demand is proven. The only difference is now you keep the profits. And then there's the third P, passion. Now, people get this wrong all the time. Passion alone doesn't pay the bills. But if you're already spending your free time learning, practicing, or diving deep into something, that passion creates knowledge. And knowledge creates value. I once met a guy who was obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons. On the surface, that doesn't sound like a business, but he found ways to turn that love for the game into income, running events, creating digital tools, and building a community. Did it make him a billionaire? No, but it gave him enough freedom to turn his favorite hobby into a source of income, and for him that was success. Here's what matters most, whether it's pain, past profession, or passion. The common thread is deep understanding. When you know something inside and out, whether it's a problem that hurts, a job you've mastered, or a hobby you obsess over, you're already ahead of the competition. Customers can feel that, investors can feel that, and the market rewards it. So, don't sit around waiting for the perfect idea to strike. Look at your pain, your profession, and your passion. One of those already holds the seed of a profitable business. If there's one trait that separates people who get rich from those who just get by, it's obsession. Obsession is the fuel that keeps you learning when others quit. It's the reason you see opportunities other people miss. And it's often the difference between a business that fails and a business that changes your entire financial future. I once met an investor who put money into what later became one of the largest movie theater chains in the country. At the time, it wasn't a big deal. It was just one theater. Most people thought the industry was dying, but the guy running it had an obsession. He knew every detail of the business. He could tell you the cost of popcorn kernels, the profit margin on soda, the exact patterns of ticket sales. He lived and breathed it. And that level of knowledge made the investor think, this guy can't lose. The result, a massive financial win. That's what obsession does. It builds confidence, not just in you, but in everyone around you. Customers trust you more. Investors take you seriously. Your competitors, they can't match the depth of your knowledge because they're not willing to go as far as you are. The same thing applies whether you're running a startup, freelancing, or investing. If you're obsessed with your market, your product, or your craft, you gain an edge. You start to notice small details that others overlook, details that turn into money. Obsession doesn't always mean working non-stop without sleep. It means caring so much that you naturally keep digging deeper. You want to learn more, refine more, improve more. It becomes second nature. And when you put that level of focus into anything, whether it's selling homes, building software, or even making pancakes for people with allergies, your chances of financial success skyrocket. The world isn't changed by people who are kind of interested. It's changed by people who are all in, people who get so wrapped up in solving a problem or building a product that everyone else calls them crazy until the money proves them right. So if you want to get rich, don't fight your obsession. Lean into it, because obsession is one of the strongest financial assets you can have. Now let's talk about financial goals, because the size of your goal will shape the path you need to take. And this is where most people get confused. If your goal is to make $1 million, Almost any business model can get you there. You could run an agency, invest in real estate, sell digital products, or even build a small e-commerce brand. With time and focus, $1 million is possible in dozens of ways. If your goal is 10 million, you'll need more leverage. You'll need a business or an asset that can scale. That might mean software, media, or a company with systems that don't rely only on your own hours. But once you start aiming for 100 million, the pool of options gets smaller. You're not going to get there with a local service business or a small shop. You'll need something big, something that reaches a wide market, solves a massive problem, or uses technology to scale fast. And if you dream about billions or even trillions, the path becomes razor thin. At that level, you're looking at industries like artificial intelligence, global finance, renewable energy, or massive tech platforms. The bigger the number, the narrower the path. But here's the good news. Most people don't need billions to live rich. In fact, once you reach around 20 to 25 million, your lifestyle options barely change as you climb higher. You can already eat at the best restaurants, stay at the best hotels, and drive the best cars. More money just means bigger numbers, not a different quality of life. So the real key is clarity. Define your number, decide what rich actually means to you. Then build a plan that matches that number, because if you aim too small, you'll stop yourself short. And if you aim too big without the right vehicle, you'll chase dreams that never match your reality. Wealth isn't about chasing the biggest number you can imagine. It's about picking the right target, then building a path that makes financial sense. When people imagine quitting their job or starting a business, the fear almost always comes back to money. They picture themselves broke, homeless, and humiliated. But let's put some real numbers to it, because the numbers tell a very different story. Let's say you quit your job tomorrow. Your worst case scenario might look like this. You have a few months of savings, maybe $10,000 in the bank. You start your business, it fails, and the money runs out. Then what? Well, here's the reality. If you're in your 20s or 30s, you can always get another job. Maybe you don't go back at the exact same salary right away, but you'll earn again. Most people underestimate how replaceable jobs actually are. Companies are always hiring. Even if you had to take a $50,000 job for a while, you'd bounce back. Now let's look at lifestyle. If the business fails, maybe you move out of the nice apartment and into a smaller place. Or you move back with family for 6 months. Or you crash on a friend's couch. Is that comfortable? No. Is it survivable? Absolutely. And years later, you'll probably laugh about it. Here's another angle. Let's say you saved up $15,000 and you lose all of it chasing your first idea. On the surface, that feels like a disaster. But if that same risk gives you a 10% chance of building a business worth $1 million, the math is obvious. Risking $15,000 for even a 1 in 10 shot at $1 million is an incredible bet. The expected value is far higher than keeping your money safe. Most people don't think in terms of expected value. They think in terms of shame. They imagine everyone pointing and laughing if they fail. But here's the truth. No one cares as much as you think. Your friends will forget, your parents will still love you, and your coworkers will move on. The embarrassment is self-inflicted. The financial downside is temporary. So let's recap the worst-case scenario in real numbers. You lose 10 or 15 grand in savings. You spend 6 to 12 months living cheaper. You maybe move back home for a bit, and at the end of it, you've gained new skills, new experience, a story that will actually make you more employable. Not less. Now compare that to the true risk of staying safe. Let's say you earn $75,000 a year at your job. You work 30, that's already $1 million total before taxes. It sounds like a lot, until you realize a small business can generate that in 5 years, and a high leverage business can generate it in 1. So which is riskier? Losing $15,000 once, or giving up millions over the course of your life because you never took the shot? The math is clear. Playing it safe is actually the most expensive choice you can make. At some point, the choice becomes simple. Do you want a guaranteed life of mediocrity, or a chance even a small chance at financial freedom? That's the real framework. On one side, you stay in the job, you follow the plan, you collect a steady paycheck, it feels safe, but it's a ceiling you will never break. It's a contract with mediocrity. It says, I accept just enough to survive, but never enough to be free. On the other side is uncertainty, the path of building wealth, the path of entrepreneurship, investing, creating, taking risks. It's filled with fear, with setbacks, with failure. But it's also the only path that gives you a shot at greatness. And here's the truth. Even when you fail, you grow, you gain skills, experience, and perspective. You come back stronger. So ask yourself, which outcome would you rather live with? A guaranteed future you don't actually want, or a chance, even one chance in 10, at building the life you've always dreamed of? Fear lives in the vague. It's only when you look closely, when you play out the worst case scenario, that you see it's not as bad as your mind makes it. You won't die. You won't lose everything. At worst, you'll have a story to tell. At best, you'll change your financial future forever. And here's the ultimate truth. Wealth doesn't come to the most talented. It doesn't come to the luckiest. It comes to the ones who decide, the ones who say, I'd rather risk everything for freedom than settle for safety that was never safe to begin with. So the question is no longer, what if I fail? The real question is, what if I never try? Because failure is temporary. Regret is permanent. Here's the truth. No one is coming to save you. No boss, no degree, no perfect plan will hand you financial freedom. It's on you. And that's the best news you'll ever hear, because it means you're in control. The path is simple. Build skills, create value, use leverage, take risks, fail, learn, and try again. That's how wealth is built, not overnight, not by luck, but by choosing courage over comfort again and again. So if you've been waiting for the perfect time to start, let me tell you something. The perfect time doesn't exist. There is no magic signal, no green light. The only moment you have is this one. Right now, you have two choices. You can keep trading your time for just enough to get by, or you can take the leap and start building something bigger. Something that grows, something that frees you, something that outlives the hours you put into it. Don't waste another year convincing yourself you're not ready. You are ready. You don't need more permission. You don't need more certainty. You need to act, because the only thing more expensive than failure is regret. And the only thing scarier than taking the leap is waking up one day and realizing you never did. So go start, take that first step, because wealth isn't waiting for the perfect person. It's waiting for the person who's willing to begin.